It looks like Anthony Richardson may have battled his way back to being the starter for the Indianapolis Colts. We'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Nick Cattles. On today's show, we're going to be looking at some interesting quarterback situations around the NFL training camp landscape. We're going to talk about Matthew Stafford's back situation in Los Angeles and how concerning that should be. We're going to talk about why I think that the New Orleans Saints are trying to sabotage their season, but we'll start with Anthony Richardson's revenge in Indianapolis. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Nick, I got to tell you, I had about zero faith that Anthony Richardson could climb his way back to being the starter for the Indianapolis Colts after the way that last year went with him getting benched and taking himself out of the game and the benching that happened after that, and then them bringing in Daniel Jones. Then at the end of the offseason program, we get the Anthony Richardson shoulder thing from his first season, and is that going to affect him? But he's been back in training camp. That hasn't been an issue, but I had very little faith that he could fight his way back after hearing all of that over the last 10 months or so.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, it's pretty tough to look at somebody like Anthony Richardson and believe that he's just going to change. He's going to be a different guy. This is very similar to who he was when he was in college. He was inaccurate. It was always about the love of what he could be and not what he actually was in that moment. So I think Indy is trying to hold on to hope, and this is a make or break year for Richardson. And you know, camp is camp. You know what I mean, Tyler? We always get jacked and pumped for camp. I'm excited for camp, but we got to understand the context of camp. You know, teams are working on certain things. So just because a guy gets hot in camp doesn't necessarily mean he's completely changed as a player.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there in the skepticism, but whether we're skeptical or not, hope is pretty high in Indianapolis after a rough first week of camp. Richardson has kind of asserted himself this week, and our guys over at Locked On Colts talked about what's going on.
Let's talk about the winners of training camp thus far, Jake, and I think we have to start with quarterback Anthony Richardson. And it's not that he has vastly outperformed Daniel Jones. Like, I think we could say at this point that he's probably the clubhouse leader when it comes to the quarterback competition, just because he's slightly been better than Daniel Jones. But just the fact that he was rolling into training camp, you know, coming off a pretty rough season last year, by all accounts, a pretty rough season, a rough end to the season with that back injury popping up, holding him out the last couple games. Then we get into mini camp and he misses time with yet another injury. The stock was as low as it's ever going to be for Anthony Richardson coming into camp. And we've seen the last 2 days with pads on, he's had two very solid performances out there, arguably his best as a Colt 2 days ago, a really good camp day there. So it seems like Anthony Richardson's trending in the right direction. It looks like some of his offseason mechanical work is carrying over to the practice field. And overall, he's been pretty solid throughout training camp. And the fact that he's been able to keep this fairly even with Daniel Jones, if not kind of pulling ahead, means that he has to be considered a big winner at this point in training camp.
Nick, I have two things off of that. Number one, I agree with you that this is training camp. I remain skeptical of Anthony Richardson being able to turn things around after what we've actually seen in the games. But also the bar that he's being measured with right now is Daniel Jones. And I'm not blaming our guys at Locked On Colts or Colts fans for saying he's doing better than Daniel Jones. But I guess just Anthony Richardson has turned it around and can be our franchise quarterback is a really far way away. It's quite a bit of ways down the block from, hey, he's been better than Daniel Jones through 2 weeks of training camp.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. I don't think anybody gets excited about Daniel Jones. I know Kevin O'Connell was thinking that he might be able to save him, and maybe KOC could because He is that good of a coach, I believe, and almost quarterback guru. But just because you're playing better or slightly better than Daniel Jones doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready to be an NFL quarterback. And not only that, lead a team to win. And let's not forget, we talk about camp. So, Richardson and Jones, they're playing against the Indianapolis Colts defense. Now, of course, this year's a different year, but last year, we're talking about a defense that was 21st in pass rush win rate. So it wasn't like they had a great pass rush. Their corners are Justin Wally and Charvarius Ward. Ward coming off his worst season in the NFL. So it's not like he's going against the best of the best. So I would also like to mention that as part of this. And I'll say one more thing, Tyler. It's easier to work on mechanics and footwork and all of that in the offseason and in camp. But when the bullets start to actually fly, can Richardson keep those mechanics? Can he keep that footwork together?
Yeah, as a classic American philosopher, Mike Tyson would say, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. But you started hitting on something that actually is my real point about the Colts this year. We could talk about the quarterback situation, but you talked about the rest of the team and especially the defense. And I think that people have this view in their head that this Colts roster is where it was 2-3 years ago, the Carson Wentz Colts, the Phillip Rivers Colts. And when that roster was so good, everyone would say, man, if you could just drop in a franchise quarterback, that team would really be something. The roster is not as good as it was then. You look at the offensive line. They lose Ryan Kelly. They lose Will Fries on the interior. They're replacing him with Tanner Bortolini and Matt Goncalves. And what are you going to get out of that? And then you talked about the defense. Yeah, still strong up the middle with DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. And, we'll see if the pass rush comes around with the edges that they brought in recent years, like a Latu and a Tuli Malawau, who they brought in this year. Kwity Paye hasn't really taken that elite jump as a first-round pass rusher yet. And the secondary outside of Ward is their biggest question with a guy like Cam Bynum, who they signed, could be good. But Nick Cross was good last year, but has had his ups and downs. Kenny Moore's a good player. I just think there are more questions on this roster than there were a couple of years ago when people thought, hey, you could just drop a quarterback in. So honestly, Richardson and Jones, neither of them I think are going to be high-level quarterbacks, and I don't think the roster is necessarily obviously high-level anymore. So I think the Colts could have a pretty rough season.
Yeah, I mean, Shane Steichen, he's an interesting guy. I think there are questions about some of the things that he has done. But you could also argue, given the roster that he's had to deal with and some of the circumstances, he's done a pretty decent job. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a team this year. It's a huge season because you've got your quarterback decision that you have to make. You either ride or die with Richardson this season. He's got to beat out Daniel Jones. If he doesn't, you're starting all over again with a new quarterback. And unless Daniel Jones, rises up like the Undertaker back in the day in the WWE. You get this quarterback situation you've got to figure out. And if you don't have the quarterback and you've got to go back into the draft, let's say next year, and invest a really good pick in a quarterback because you're not going to aim to draft a guy in the second or third round. If you invest another pick, a first round pick, and if it's a top 10 pick or you got to move up in the draft, then do you keep Steichen? I think it's unlikely. Right. It's unlikely. You probably find a new coach to work with the new quarterback. It's new beginnings. And let's not even get into the ownership question with Irsay now having passed, rest in peace. What is that new ownership group going to do? How are they going to feel about things? So it's a very interesting season in Indianapolis.
Nick, that's exactly where I was going to cap it, is the owners. If Richardson, why would you give Steichen another quarterback opportunity? They could look and say, hey, you failed to develop this one. We can't give him another one. So it does make for an interesting – the Colts aren't all bad. Like, they're not a terrible team like we're about to talk about in a second. But also there are enough question marks where, it could go either way. Very interesting what happens in Indianapolis. But talking about a team that I don't think is very good, and quite frankly, it's of their own making. I think the Saints are trying to sabotage their season. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can, whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase. Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, of course, you're also building wealth. I was shocked at how much I was spending on online shopping when I got Monarch, and now I can track that spending. Plus, I've been getting into investments, so being able to track that spending, investments, accounts, all in one place makes everything so efficient. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Nick, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the situation in Indianapolis. Now I want to continue looking at quarterback situations around the NFL. I want to talk about the New Orleans Saints, who, in my opinion, seem to be sabotaging themselves. And let the record show, looks like my guy Ross, the mastermind, ducked this episode. He didn't want the heat about the Saints. All jokes aside, Ross is hard at work covering the New Orleans Saints right now. And, you know, I like having Nick in the chair anyway, so it all worked out fine. But we do got to throw it to my guy, Ross Jackson, the mastermind from Locked On Saints, so he can explain what is going on with the quarterback situation this week.
Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener are all involved in this quarterback competition. They're all getting first-team reps. Spencer Rattler is the only one that hasn't seen any third-team reps. He is very clearly, Spencer Rattler, in the lead right now when it comes to this quarterback competition. And he's got a good chance to stay there as well, although, you know how this goes, right? There's a lot of time left here as things go. So we're not calling a winner right now. No one should be. Certainly the New Orleans Saints shouldn't be. But right now, Spencer Rattler feels very comfortably in the lead when it comes to this quarterback competition. And despite a recent push from Jake Haener, who's seen more first-team reps, who got the hurry-up drills at the end of walkthroughs, and then also got the hurry-up drill along with first-team reps in the second padded practice when they went into that 2-minute drill work, end of half, 2-minute drill. He ends up getting all those. Despite all of that, it still very much feels like Tyler Shough, as I go through and I rechart all of the numbers and all of the team reps and 7-on-7 reps, still feels like Tyler Shough is still the biggest competition for Spencer Rattler.
Listen, we got to be honest here. You got Spencer Rattler, who's in his second year. You got Jake Haener, who was a 5th-round pick 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He's not going to start at quarterback. You got Tyler Shough, who is the guy who the new regime, the new coaching staff wanted and went and drafted in the second round. Whoever is going to start at quarterback is either going to be Spencer Rattler or it's going to be Tyler Shough. You giving first-team reps to Jake Haener on multiple days of training camp is literally insane. The only explanation that I can make in my mind when I see things like that, and Saints fans are going nuts in these posts about Jake Haener getting first-team reps, the only explanation is that the Saints are trying to tank this season. They don't want any other quarterbacks to play very well. They don't plan on throwing Tyler Shough to the dogs when the team isn't very good. Like, what could be the other explanation for Jake Haener getting first-team reps when this team's quarterbacks are so young, other than they are truly trying to sabotage their season? Kellen Moore understands that they're not going to be a good team, and they want to set themselves up for a great draft pick. Like, it's just insane to me.
What could be the explanation? One I could come up with is that you got a rookie head coach who's trying to find his tuchus in the job and trying to figure out what to do at the quarterback position. I don't have a huge issue with a competition during camp. I mean, camp is supposed to have a competition. That's when you get these kinds of things done. But it is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It is silly that you have all 3 of your quarterbacks taking first-team reps. It's absurd because how is it fair to any of the guys? It's not fair to any of the guys. If you have a one-on-one, mano-a-mano competition between Rattler and Shough, I get it. Fine, it makes sense. But if you're going to have a third guy in there, now you're just splitting it. Now you've got, you're getting 1/3 of the reps, and we're talking about somebody in Tyler Shough. I know that he's at an advanced age for a rookie, but still, you're talking about somebody who is trying to go through his rookie camp in the most critical position And now you're taking valuable snaps away from him in practice with the ones to appease a 5th-round pick from a few years ago. It makes absolutely zero sense to me whatsoever, Tyler.
No, I am fully on board. We agree 100%. And look, don't do a ton of home cooking on here, but right now I'm covering a rookie quarterback who's number 1 overall on the team I cover on a daily basis. You're covering a second-year quarterback in Drake May, who is trying to learn the NFL still. And what do we talk about on these shows? Oh, the protection packages. When sliding your offensive line, reading the defensive front, audible and changing plays, knowing personnel, getting on the same page with your wide receivers at what depths your route need to be at, the timing of those routes, when they should expect the ball, what could happen if it doesn't go here. And I go, all of these things aren't just, hey, can you throw the football good and accurate? These are all mental things that these young quarterbacks need. And when your best 2 quarterbacks are a second-year quarterback and a rookie quarterback, like, those things are so critically important. So it's not just about, getting opportunities to play with the starters and what can you do there. It's getting on the same page. And if you want to win football games come fall, you need one of these young quarterbacks to be as mentally ready as possible. And letting Jake Haener get any of those when we all realistically can look at and say, he's not going to be your starting quarterback this year. It just tells me that they are not fully focused on getting these quarterbacks as ready as possible to win games. And maybe there's a larger development plan that they're trying to establish here. I have a hard time looking at that and saying, oh, you're trying to win games. But also, Nick, I have a hard time looking at a quarterback room of Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shough and saying that you were trying to win games in the first place. I've been saying that to me, it looks like the Saints have been trying to sabotage this season long before this training camp.
Well, it was a tough situation because you look at this past draft and obviously the league was not high on this quarterback class. You go back to, the prior class in 2024, and you have maybe as many as 5 or 6 guys who could be actual legitimate starting quarterbacks in the league for the next decade. Mm-hmm. So it was a completely different class. The Saints did what they could do, I guess. You had the Carr situation, obviously, which popped up.
Made it tough.
Yeah, it made it tough. But as far as what's going on currently, I would just imagine that you want your starting quarterback figured out by, let's say, the middle of August, so he can start taking exclusive reps with the ones. You don't want this thing to continue to stretch too much further. And so to have 3 guys taking these reps, and what's truly amazing to me, Tyler, is not only we talked about Kellen Moore being a rookie head coach. So let's get this straight and not get it twisted. Kellen Moore, everything that he does from, the first day of OTAs through the final game of this season is going to have a microscope on it because you never know if a guy's going to work out in that position. But the thing that's truly amazing is Kellen Moore was a quarterback. If anybody truly appreciates the challenge that a quarterback has, especially at a young age, appreciate the challenge that a quarterback has during camp, trying to figure things out with a new offense, new system, new players alongside them, a new league for Shough, you would think it would be Kellen Moore. So it is kind of interesting that the former quarterback is making it seemingly tougher on every quarterback on his roster.
Yeah, it is peculiar. And I got to tell you, Nick, you talk about, just saying it. I don't believe in Kellen Moore. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to be a good head coach. I think it's hilarious. I keep making this point when I talk about the Saints, but it's hilarious to me that we took the coaching staff from the 2023 Chargers, who critically underperformed based on the talent on the roster, replaced them with Jim Harbaugh. He immediately took the team to the playoffs because the roster does have talent. And we said, you know what we should do? We should take one of the worst rosters in the NFL and give them that same coaching staff from the 2023 Chargers that couldn't win with a good roster. Like, that's what the Saints did. They flipped, Brandon Staley isn't the head coach, and he's a coordinator now, and Kellen Moore isn't a coordinator. Now he's the head coach. But to me, it's just like we already saw this coaching combo together not do a good job, and just flipping Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley and coordinator to head coach. Like, I'm sorry. I don't believe in them. I think 2 years from now, the Saints will be looking for new coaches. So if they're tanking on purpose, then I'll give them some credit for understanding, but I don't think they are. I just think they're in over their head in New Orleans.
And they've always handled the cap in a certain way where it seems like that forever they're dealing with money issues. Yes. They have to restructure contract after contract. So I don't know how you look at this current iteration of the team roster-wise and look at the coaching staff. I mean, let's not forget, Kellen Moore was like the last option. He was like the last dude on the island that the Saints could hire. Nobody out there, no coaching candidate wanted this job. Nobody. And you've got ownership who's going through some things, that are off the field, that are very interesting with email chains. So much like we talked about trying to figure out what the Colts are going to be under this new ownership after the passing of Jim Irsay. What does this ownership group do to prospective players and coaches who look at it and go, yeah, I'm not so sure that that's where I want to be. And so it's going to be interesting. New Orleans, the football place, the Pelicans are having a heck of a time.
Great fans.
Yeah, trying to be a consistent team in the NBA because it's such a powerful NFL market, college football market.
Right.
But I don't know how you have a lot of hope looking at this season, given what they have.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And then, add in, they start experiencing injuries. Juwan Johnson dealing with something. And then you get Tyrann Mathieu retiring. It just, it's a lot going on in New Orleans right now. But speaking of a lot going on, the city of Los Angeles always has a lot going on. It sounds like Matthew Stafford has a lot going on right now as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings back the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or at work, it's training camp. I know we're all working real hard right now. You need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. For me personally, whether I'm out on the course or, again, whether I'm at work, that midday, man, it's always nice to get a little extra kick, and you can get that with the 5 Hour Energy Transfusion shot. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, and that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. All right, Nick, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We've talked about the Anthony Richardson comeback in Indianapolis. We talked about the Saints looking like they're trying to sabotage their team this year. But now we need to talk about a good football team, the Los Angeles Rams. But they have a big problem, and that's Matthew Stafford's injury. And I'll throw it to Locked On Rams to break down the latest.
We've talked a lot about Matthew Stafford's back injury, and he's obviously the biggest name. He's QB1. He's their franchise quarterback. He's the most important player on this team, and it's not even close. Number one with a bullet. And Sean McVay did say that he was going to miss the first week of training camp because of the back soreness. Now it's a week-to-week situation because the back injury is lingering.
Can I say this? I think this is an old man not wanting to be at training camp. Why put Matthew Stafford through a tough training camp? Why make him grind? He knows the offense. He knows all the things that we talked about with the young quarterbacks in New Orleans and our own young quarterbacks that we cover with our own shows every day. None of that applies to Matthew Stafford. He knows everything. He knows his receivers. I know Devontae Adams is new, but I'm just not worried whatsoever about Matthew Stafford. So I am going to theorize for the betterment of the NFL season and my enjoyment of it that this is not a serious issue, and this is just Matthew Stafford being smart maintenance with an older veteran through training camp.
Could be. I've got some concern though. I mean, the back is no joke. Let's start there.
True.
I mean, I've got back issues. I've had back surgery, and I'm not even playing in the NFL, so I can't imagine having back problems and trying to play that violent physical game. So the back is no joke. It's the epicenter of you, and if that's having any kind of issues, it could throw you off entirely. We also have to remember this is a guy that took a lot of hits before he got to LA. I mean, when he was playing in Detroit, the dude got
always hurt
over and over and over again. And, when we talk about managing, I've got no problem, Tyler, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're saying he's a veteran. He knows, as you mentioned, everything you need to know. But if I'm Sean McVay, I'd have him out there taking at least some snaps. I would not be putting him in mothballs and saying, hey, man, we'll see you in late August. Best of luck to you. He's 37 years old. So I would be giving him some reps and maybe, managing him in a different way than week to week. Week to week feels like a fluid situation. Week to week feels like it could be something that is significant right now. Might not be significant later, but when a team says week to week, I do feel like that brings a little bit more gravity to the situation.
No, I'm definitely looking at it through whatever the blue and yellow tinted glasses for the Rams for sure right now. I would definitely admit that, but I also have this thought. If I'm honest, even if Stafford were to miss a couple weeks, I don't know that I'm that concerned about that either. Like, I just trust Sean McVay to get enough wins during that time for them to be fine as long as he comes back, the end of September, October, something like that. I think the Rams are good enough to get it together. They do have Jimmy Garoppolo, who was absolutely awful in his last opportunities to be a starter, but at the end of the day, it's an experienced guy. They play the Titans week 2. The Rams could absolutely beat the Titans in week 2 with a Jimmy Garoppolo. They're that much of a better team. So I guess if this thing comes out and Stafford is going to be out for months eventually, yeah, I'll definitely be concerned and we'll rehab the conversation. But right now, I guess my concern level is very low, whether it's real or it's fake.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic as you are regarding the backup quarterback situation with Jimmy Garoppolo. I've had history with Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously, as following the Patriots and being the Patriots host. I remember his issues. He is not an Iron Man. Let's just say that. And so I'd be concerned about his health as well. And when you look at the schedule, let's play this out in the hypothetical scenario that you threw out there, the idea of, hey, what if Stafford, has to miss a few weeks? I'll tell you, the Rams' schedule is pretty tough. I mean, you start with the Texans. You start with the Texans, and you're at least at home for that game. Titans, okay, but it's at Tennessee, so you're flying across the country. And then you've got to play. Then you've got to play at Philly, and then you've got the Colts, which isn't that bad. But then you've got a divisional matchup against the 49ers, and then you've got to go back on the road to Baltimore. So I mean, we're talking Texans, Eagles, Ravens, and those are 3 teams that probably get to the playoffs if they stay healthy. And the 49ers, I'm not as high on the 49ers, but again, division rival and the Shanahan-McVay relationship, they know a lot about each other. So that might be a little bit tougher if you don't have Stafford to get through that, even if Jimmy G is healthy and playing decent football.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Rams are a much better team with Matthew Stafford, but you're right. If it were extended in any way, they have so many good teams. It's very unlikely that, you could sneak out a win on some of those better teams in the NFL. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Nick Cattles. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.